Do you like powerful rear-wheel drive sedans? Me too. And that's why this car behind me, I reckon, is completely underrated. It is the 2020 Kia Stinger GT. We're going to check it out today, but this one has a special exhaust fitted to it. So this is the Kia Stinger. It was half engineered by the guy that was in charge of BMW's M division for quite some time. Then he defected to Kia and picked up this engineering program about halfway through. I'm hoping he's not responsible for the fake air vents, but anyway, aside from that, it is quite a good looking car. It's a little over 4.8 meters long, a little under 1900 millimeters wide. So it is quite a big car that seats 5. It'll do 0 to 100 in under 5 seconds. But before we get stuck into the review, you can skip ahead to other sections if you want. So click ahead using the time codes above, or if you are time poor, here's a quick 1-minute wrap of the 2020 Kia Stinger GT. While the Stinger range kicks off from $47,190, it's the car right here that you want. This is the top specification Stinger GT, priced from $60,790, and it packs a mighty twin turbocharged 3.3 litre V6 engine that produces 272 kilowatts of power and 510 newton meters of torque, and it'll sprint from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just 4.8 seconds. Sending torque through the rear wheels, it has a limited slip differential plus a big set of 4-piston Brembo brakes up front. Inside the cabin, it's finished in Napa leather with an 8-inch infotainment system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, plus heated and cooled seats, a heated steering wheel and a heads-up display. Find yourself a set of corners and the sticky Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tyres team with adaptive dampers and communicative steering to deliver sports car performance in a big sedan. To get the full story, stay right where you are. It is a hatch, not a sedan, so that means you get 406 litres of cargo space, and this boot opening means you can cram plenty of stuff in without too many dramas. If you fold the seats flat, 60-40 split folding, it opens up to over 1,100 litres of cargo space, which is pretty good. Now, what about that sloping roofline? Does it cut your headroom in the second row? Let's find out. So, headroom isn't too bad, but it's not great either, especially if you're a taller person. I've got a narrow torso, so I kind of fit in okay. What's more concerning though is the lack of toe room. I've got that chair quite far back and low, and I can barely fit my toes under there. It's quite uncomfortable. Knee room is good, but again, not amazing. The GT comes standard with Napa leather trim, so that's super fancy. And then this red is a no-cost option. I love the look of it. It looks really good. Center console here with 2 cup holders. Then you've got USB charging port. You've got rear air vents, plus a 12-volt outlet as well. But up the front is where all the magic happens. Let me run you through some of the features in the front of the cabin. Let's be honest, no one thought 10 years ago that you'd be sitting inside a Kia going, hey, this thing is actually really nice. Well, hey, this thing is actually really nice. It is a great place to be seated. The seats are super comfy and super supportive. I love that GT insignia in the headrest there. I love the steering wheel as well. Have a look at that. Sits beautifully in the hands. Got that flat bottom there. Says GT with the paddle shifters behind it. It looks really nice. 8-inch infotainment screen. I'm going to go through a bit more detail on that shortly. Air vents, and then down here you have your shortcut functions. Harman Kardon sound system. Excellent. 15 speakers. It sounds really good when you've got your favourite track playing through there. Dual zone climate control, but it's also joined down here by a number of handy features with heated and cooled seats and a new addition to the 2020 range, which is a heated steering wheel. Then on top of that, you have your 360-degree camera, which really gives you ease of use when it comes to parking this car. It has quite a long bonnet, so it makes life much easier. Storage. You've got storage everywhere. USB points, you've got a 12-volt outlet plus wireless phone charging, so you can slot your phone down there. And then generous glove box storage as well with a decent center console too. So it is really quite the optimal interior. In front of the driver, you've got a heads-up display there. It's very clear, displays your navigation information, speed as well. And then ahead of the driver, you also have an LCD display in the center there with a digital speedo. Very important in Australia where you have speed cameras hidden everywhere. Plus, I love this, standard on the GT, a panoramic roof as well. The pricing for this car kicks off at a little over $60,000 plus on-road costs, so it is good value for money, with the exhaust fitted to this car, which you're going to hear shortly, coming in at around $2,600 on top of that and fitted after delivery. Up the top here, you've got an 8-inch infotainment screen. It's a good amount of real estate, and they've future-proofed it as well. You can see around here that I reckon there's going to be a big old screen there in a future update of this car. But for the moment, you've got this. So I'm going to walk you through this screen in a bit more detail to give you an idea of what it features and how it works. So this is the home screen that I normally have it on when I'm driving. So it's just the map screen. And you can see it's fairly easy to use, zooms in and out rather nicely, and you've got a fairly high resolution screen as well. Down the bottom here, you've got all the shortcuts. So if you do want to just come straight to the map screen, you just hit map, and if you want to go to the nav screen to enter destinations, you can enter them in here. Now, unfortunately, there is a voice recognition function, but as you press that, you'll notice here it says that it only works when you have a smartphone mirroring connection active. So unlike a lot of cars that allow you to speak to the car without a smartphone, this doesn't, and that is a little bit frustrating because it means you need to take your eyes off the road to run through all of these functions. But you do have some handy features here. So for example, if you break down or there's an emergency or something goes wrong, you can hit the coordinates button, and this allows you to speak to emergency services to give them an idea of exactly where you are, and then you'll also be able to share that information, and then you've also got all your nearest police stations, hospitals, and so on. So they've thought ahead there. On the home screen, you have the map on one side and the ability to record a voice memo up here. So if you get a flash of an idea or something while you're driving, you can come in here, hit record, speak to the car, and then it will record that information for you. So this is quite unique. I haven't seen this on any other car, so it is a pretty handy feature to have. And then you also have sub-menus here that allow you to switch between different menus. Before I go into those, you've also got a star button down here that allows you to assign a prefix to that star button. So if you do want to go straight to smartphone mirroring, for example, you can set that, and then away it goes. So on the home screen here, we hit all menus to get presented with the sub-menus. Here you'll be able to find your phone. So this is a fairly standard phone connection. Bluetooth connectivity, you can add and remove phones there. Dial numbers, see contacts, see previous calls, and so on. Quick guide, so this is kind of like a manual built into the car. In here, you'll be able to see guides on how everything works. So if you ever get stuck, that's where you want to be going. As we transition through the screen, you've got the option to select a radio station. So here you have AM, FM and DAB digital radio. That all links to the excellent sound system, Harman Kardon. It's about 700 watts of power, 15 speakers. It is a cracker of a sound system, and it comes standard with the GT model. Again, you've got that shortcut to the current position and also media as well. There you can stream Bluetooth, USB, and also store information on the screen as well for later play. The navigation screen again takes you to where you need to go. Climate. This is your interactive climate screen. While you do have your dual zone climate controls down the bottom, and then you have your heated and cooled seats down here, you can select the climate mode here to see exactly what it's doing. And there you can also sync and then change settings in terms of how that climate propagates throughout the car. One annoying thing is though, you'll notice up here 3 times now we've had a battery discharge warning come up. Now, obviously we know it's discharging because we're sitting here with the car off and it's running, but it keeps telling us that's happening. So where you're going to find that really annoying is if you ever go to the drive-in movies or you're doing something where it requires you to sit for a while with the car not switched on, that message is going to get quite irritating. So this is a fairly well featured infotainment system. I forgot, there's actually one extra cool feature here. So as you set your drive mode, you flick across to sport there, you get a note up there saying you're in sport mode, but you can also set a custom mode as well. So here we have the custom mode. You can go to settings, and here you can set individual settings such as engine and transmission. So you can have that in sport, comfort, or eco. And then you can also set the steering wheel weight and also the suspension comfort as well. But there is also another great function in here, and that is the ability to kill a noise that manufacturers love adding into the cabin of these cars. So this car is able to pump in engine sound noise through the speakers. Sure, it's great if you're into that kind of thing, but given you have an exhaust fitted to this car, there's probably no point in having it. So you can switch that off entirely. You can also set a coasting function, which is when the car's in eco mode, it's able to decouple the engine from the transmission so that it coasts down hills as opposed to remaining engaged within its gear. As a highway cruiser, Kia has really done a good job nailing a balance between sportiness and comfort. Right now we have it in comfort, which means the adaptive dampers have everything in a soft mode. You can then flick it across to sport, which makes it a little louder and a little firmer. And then you've also got a custom mode where you can actually configure the type of response you get from the engine, the steering feel, and also the ride firmness. One of the favorite things here is when you do put it into sport mode, it actually puts the bolsters in so it hugs you in nice and tight before everything turns a little loud. Despite the fact it's sitting on 19-inch alloy wheels, it really is quite a comfortable car with excellent visibility. It's a big sedan, but on the road it doesn't feel all that big. So when you look out the front, you've got good visibility, decent sized wing mirrors. The only downside is when you're looking out the back, it's quite a small and thin envelope, so it's a little tricky to see out there, but you are backed up with things like blind spot monitoring, and you have a fantastic 360-degree camera when it comes to parking this car in tight spaces. Let's talk about sport mode. So flick that across to sport. I feel those bolsters tightening up. The exhaust gets a whole lot louder, and all of a sudden this thing is turning into a rocket ship. Oh man, it sounds so good. That exhaust really transforms this. It sounds a bit like a sewing machine without it. God, it really picks up. That 510 Newton meters of torque, it is completely understated. You've got a 3.3 litre turbocharged V6. It just keeps going. It's almost like it just doesn't want to give up, and you just don't feel like there's any ceiling to the amount of torque it's going to deliver. Sticks beautifully through the corners. Oh, that noise. You've got to hear what this sounds like in the car. It's not like an overdone thrum, but it is nice and throaty, so you really get a lot out of it. Absolutely love that. Thing that's annoying me here though, it just keeps shifting up gears on its own. If you do want it to hold a gear as you sort of come through one of these corners, it can get a little frustrating. Now let's talk about the brakes. Brembo 4-piston calipers up the front. You've then got a 2-piston set at the rear. They're really quite a confident brake. You can jump on it. There's a lot of pedal feel there, and you feel like it's always going to be there for you as well. We've done some track testing with this car previously, and it actually handles stopping really nicely. So it is quite a decent setup, and it's not going to leave you wanting if you are going to take this on a racetrack occasionally. Now slide this back into comfort. Let's talk about the tyres. Michelin Pilot Sport 4s. They are an incredibly grippy set of tyres, and they're certainly better than the Continentals that come in other Stinger models. The Continentals are just not suited to this car if you're going to do any faster or track driving. They just fall away and start delaminating far too early. In this car, on the other hand, with the Michelins, it really does suit the character of the car more, and every time you get on the throttle, regardless of how fast you're going, there is always traction available. So when you are on the racetrack and you do want to have a little bit more fun with everything switched off, well, this is where this car really comes into its own. It has a limited slip differential, and it means that if you do switch everything off, it can actually be really enjoyable. We've had it on a skid pan before. We've done a lot of drifting type things with it, and it's really easy to control. You get excellent feel through the steering wheel, and it is just a smile maker. It is the type of thing we're missing from the car industry, a powerful rear-wheel drive car, and finally it actually sounds good with this optional exhaust on it. Somehow Kia has managed to make this engine capable of accepting some of our pretty poor fuel in Australia. 91 RON is the minimum. Obviously I'd be putting 98 in this if I owned it, just because you want that extra little bit of quality, and you've got to feel like you're loving the engine as opposed to just feeding it whatever you can find at the petrol station. But it does return a combined fuel efficiency of 10.2 litres per 100 kilometres. Yes, you will get that if you are being gentle and being nice to the car, but if you drive it so you can hear the exhaust, it's obviously going to be a little bit higher than that. So on the stopwatch, what can you expect from the Kia Stinger? So 272 kilowatts of power, 510 Newton meters of torque, we know that much. But if you do attach a V-Box to it, which is what we've done previously, it's a performance measuring device, we've been able to achieve 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, which is 62 miles an hour, in 4.8 seconds, which is really impressive for a car this size. Then on top of that, the quarter mile is dispatched in under 13 seconds. So it is a quick car. When we had it on the dyno, while it does claim to make 272 kilowatts of power at the flywheel, it was actually producing almost 240 kilowatts of power at the wheels. So it is fairly underquoted. You can imagine that with a very light tune, or perhaps with a freer flowing exhaust, you can actually extract some really good numbers out of this car. So that's been a review of the 2020 Kia Stinger GT. Yes, it is only a very minor change for the 2020 model year, but this car still represents excellent performance bang for your buck. And I am glad they got rid of that SI spec where that sits sort of beneath the GT. The GT just provides so much good value for money. I mean, heated steering wheel, heated and cooled seats. It really is loaded with features and comes with a very, very lovable turbocharged V6 engine. And should you invest in the exhaust? Well, I reckon it's worth it. It just gives the car a bit more character and stops it sounding so dull and dreary without an engine note. So it certainly transforms the feel behind the wheel, and this really is a car that I would spend my own money on. To read the full review, head to caradvice.com. Let us know what you think of the Stinger. Have you bought one? Are you enjoying it? What do you love about it? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.